Welcome to the Ship It podcast. My name is Brandon Askov. We got a few people here today. I'll mention what we'll talk about in a second. Let's go around the room.
Dave, I'm a software engineer here at Rocket.
Yeah, my name is Richard Pressler. I'm a software engineer at Rocket as well.
I'm Jesse. I'm one of the founders of Rocket Insights, and I have been an engineer at a point in my life.
You're still an engineer. Don't sell yourself.
I appreciate you saying that.
I'm Ryan, and I'm also a Rocket engineer.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about, so your friend wants to learn how to code. And I think anyone who has been an engineer for a little while has had this come up in their life. Maybe it's your friend or a family member. Maybe it's someone who's jealous of your work-at-home lifestyle that seems to be like the
happens.
The present, like, how do you do that? How do I do that? And I always try to take, when people ask me this, I try to take it seriously every time because sometimes people actually care. But I'd say 99% of the time it falls through. So I've gone through many different approaches to this kind of thing. So I'm curious to know how you guys typically handle this. For instance, I'll just start. So for instance, what I might say to somebody when they're like, hey, I want to learn how to code. Where do I start? I first will go through a process of have you ever had a warning pop up in your computer where it's a missing file or something? And do you click OK? Do you ever try to solve it? And if you were going to solve it and you had to do that for an hour, here's the next error, here's the next error, Google the next thing. Would that drive you crazy? And most people say yes. And I was like, you probably should not code.
Well, I mean, it still drives me crazy, but in a good way.
You try to determine early on if you should even bother.
Yeah. I feel it's like the roller coaster of doing coding stuff is you're going to be kicking yourself a lot of the time, but then you get that win. You're like, oh, it's great. It's like that roller coaster ride. And not everyone wants that emotional roller coaster. Some people just get frustrated.
Yeah. I usually ask why they want to do it.
Okay.
Because I always got into just I want to be able to create something. And so I think if people are trying to get into for just the lifestyle, I think that fades out pretty quickly. But if you're getting into it because the lifestyle of hey, I really want to be able to create something, or I have this vision something I want to be able to create, I feel that helps drive you to keep going. You're going to get frustrated when you're learning. It's a lot to learn, and there's just no way you're not getting frustrated. But if you're doing it for the right reasons, you'll push through, I think.
Yeah. I mean, well, you did a boot camp with some people who were sort of paid to go there. We won't mention the name of the company but they paid for some of their internal employees to go to this boot camp. And so I'm curious to know. So we hired Ryan because he was clearly the cream of the crop from that boot camp,
and a good handshake.
And had a great handshake. That's right. We did hire him mostly on that handshake. I'm curious to know.
Kind of serious.
The second person we've done that with. So while you were there, the other people that you saw at that boot camp who were probably there for similar reasons, this could be a change of career for me. How many people took that seriously?
I think a lot of them took it seriously, but I don't think that they really had much of an idea of what they were getting into when they started it. A lot of them, for example, had never even seen a terminal window, so didn't really have a lot of tech background, and it was just definitely overwhelming for them, for sure. But again, a lot of those people, those boot camps people go to spend a lot of time and money. But in this case, this was a scenario where a lot of people were actually losing their jobs, and they had this program where they were able to apply for this. So in that case, it was well, I'll give it a shot because it's worth it, But yeah, there were.
If it's free.
Right?
Yeah. Did you see a theme of for people it worked out for and people it didn't work out for?
Yeah, actually, I think for the most part, it worked out. A lot of people that I've friends with on LinkedIn, I've watched them actually go from to a different company or a different job, and a lot of them have not stuck with it.
I've not stuck with it.
Yeah, and then there was a few people in there that came from a similar background like myself, who had a technical experience, but just wanted to actually get into development and just saw this as
for you, it was leveling up, right? Because you had some background.
Thanks to you. I did have some background. It was something that I had really wanted to get into, but I was just so far down the path that I was already on that I decided to stick with that for the time being. But once that opportunity came up, I just jumped on it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know that. So John hired a lot of folks out of Launch Academy, and his thing that he always looked for was criteria was people that had gone through a career, maybe worked in a career for almost a decade, but wanted to shift, but it was kind of analytical by nature. So any of the sciences, biology, chemistry, even lawyers, just if you're
musicians.
I love hiring musicians.
Yeah, it's a weird crossover.
There is a theme. Yeah. There is a theme without a doubt.
Absolutely. Yeah. So and those people he said always worked out really well, which is it's an interesting crossover. Yeah. But I don't know what little bit that's there that makes us being analytical.
Like when I started coding, it was like it started from someone showing me how to use Dreamweaver, like the WYSIWYG editor in Dreamweaver, and then like going to the code side of that. And so for me, I had no exposure to a terminal window for a while until I like basically had already signed up to go to college and like, yeah, let's learn this thing. I was way behind for the first 2 years. I just had to crank on it and crank. There's so many books on my desk all the time. But it was easy for me because in college it was like, I mean, they were paying my tab, so I could just study all the time. I feel like it's got to be so much harder for someone who has a current career and trying to switch into that career.
It's so hard.
Well, you teach, Richard, you teach at one of these kind of boot camps. What's it called?
Yeah, so I TA'd a boot camp up here in UNH, in New Hampshire, for UNH. And I think it's really exactly as Ryan said. There's people that do well and people that don't. And I think to echo kind of the theme is that it's drive. It's how much do you enjoy it and why are you here? We definitely had people actually from Ryan's company. We had a bunch from Ryan's company, and some of them were simply, I want that lifestyle, and some of them fizzled out. We had about 3 or 4 folks that left the program somewhat early when they realized that, oh man, it's a lot of work. It really is.
How big is the program typically?
We did 26-person classes. Yep. And usually about 20 get to the end, which is actually still pretty impressive. Yeah. Aside from the very few that had a paid ride, most of them paid. So that's the nice thing about the boot camp that I was doing is they would actually screen people with exactly the question kind of you were asking is this something that you want to do because you want to do it? And those are the people that they would pull in to the course, and others they would actually turn away.
Oh,
that's different.
I was going to say, you don't usually hear about boot camps turning people away. That's like Ivy League stuff.
I have to say there's a very large spectrum of boot camps. I've noticed that they've been cropping up a lot.
It's a lot of money to be made there.
Absolutely.
In a short amount of time.
That's right.
Yeah. Some of them are simply, here's the basics that you could have probably found on Code Academy, and others really take you through real world scenarios. The particular one that I did in about a month here, the entire class is going to be presenting at a local venue, and businesses from the area are going to be coming and actually, kind of scouting.
Yeah, we're going, right?
Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah. So some of them are gonna give you are gonna put you in a good place, and some might not be. So the boot camps are the kind of thing that you really do have to research.
I found with some of them, I've taught at one of them, and all of the teachers at that one are volunteers. My company wanted to check it out to see, because we worked with one that worked pretty well for us, and we wanted to check out this other one, and so it kind of did it as a favor. It was all, I think, Ruby based, and they wanted me to teach about authorization and whatnot. And I was like, I don't know Ruby. They're like, that's fine. Just here's the material that you'd cover, and just do your best. Just
I believe
I'll talk about it, but not really in that context. It was pretty awkward.
Yeah,
it's pretty awkward. But I heard you said something about Code Academy.
Yeah.
Have you guys suggested that or things like that to people before?
I mean, I'm like, when people ask me, I always tell them that there is a boot camp route you can go, which is sort of like hit the ground running, expect 40-hour weeks, that kind of thing. Like, it's a job that you're learning in its compressed time frame. But like you were mentioning, and Richard, you're mentioning, there was a bunch of different boot camps. Some were 3 months and you're going to learn like HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript, and some are like 18 months and we're going to teach you Rails top to bottom, React top to bottom, and you're going to come out of there pretty sharp. But that's a huge difference. So I'll tell people, yes, boot camps are an option. I also wonder, I feel like for some people though, like it's about discipline, I think, like self-discipline. Yeah. Like if some people could learn, sure, you could, what is it, Udemy? Is that
sorry, did I have that wrong? I thought that's what you were talking about.
So yeah,
it's like the
Code Academy and Udemy are similar.
Oh, I was thinking Code Academy is a boot camp. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah. Code Academy.
I mean, it kind of is, but it's like the self-paced online kind of thing.
I definitely mention it because it's a cheap and it's an easier way to go for some people, and it's not as intense mentally, but it takes longer. And not everyone sticks through it.
People have been interested or just like wanting to get out of what they're doing. I think their motivation was to not do what they're doing, not necessarily like make more money or have, like a different lifestyle, but just like they're in, some like service industry that's just brutal and like it's just not good for your your mental being. So I think I've sent those kinds of things to people a few times just so they can kind of check it out and see it. I haven't had a good reaction. They usually just were like, done now.
I've had the same results. Because when I graduated, like none of the accelerator programs existed, right? So like friends are like, hey, I want to get into this. I'd be like, here's this book, and like give them something to be like, go try to build.
Have you heard of dynamic HTML?
Yeah, exactly. Like, Ajax is exciting. Yeah. Like here you go.
You can make your cursor like fireworks.
Yeah, exactly. So
you can make your own MySpace layout.
But isn't that kind of the mentality that you need? Like you want to.
So I
be
agree
into
with that,
it.
right? Exactly.
So like I used to love those websites where they're like you could do this weird thing. It was like what ES3 or something. It's like you basically can't do anything in JavaScript, but here's how you can kind of.
So like that's exactly right. Like the handful of people who worked out with, it was less of like, hey, like it was more of like, I saw this online, like how can I do this? Like how can I build something like this? And be like, okay, let's start smaller, like let's build an HTML page together, right? And I just kind of give them like steps of like building blocks to work on, and like they would just go figure it out themselves.
It's just at least for me, like when I started out, I think my dad was in tech to a degree, and I was like, how do websites work? And he's like, look at this. View source.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like, oh my god! So I went into those things and just started like looking around and changing stuff because you could just save it to your desktop.
Just save it exactly.
There was nothing compiled JavaScript back then.
It wasn't obfuscated, or they do like they'd have some tricks. They'd block right clicking.
Yeah, God.
And like weird stuff, or they'd put a bunch of space in. It's like, oh no, it's empty.
Yeah. So that's right.
Stuff like that. But it really wasn't a problem.
We used to always put recruiter things in there, like a lot of my previous jobs. And it was like, so anyone that was viewing the source is like, you should come here.
Yeah, Khan Academy does that.
Do they?
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
They have like this nice ASCII.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it says, hey, if you want to look around, here's the file.
You just saw somebody.
I'm like a single person gonna be like, hey, I saw your ASCII code. I want to work there. Like,
I saw your ad.
Never.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then there's Facebook that basically says, why are you here? Why are you looking at this? It's a bad idea.
I think Facebook's actually is like, don't.
It's like this big warning, like somebody told you to come here.
Yeah.
Like, don't. Go away.
What was the first? I was just thinking about this as we were talking about it. You were saying help someone build an HTML page. And I was saying how I started that with Dreamweaver. It was like a project I was doing for like an economics class in high school. And then I was sort of, well, what's the next layer of the onion? And once I figured out I hit the server side layer where it's like, I can store stuff in a database and automate shit. I'm like, oh, I'm never looking back. Yeah. And it's like PHP, MySQL, here I come. And so I'm curious, what was like the first thing you did where you're like, this started my slippery slope into like the development world?
Mafia Wars on my TI-83.
Really?
Definitely.
I did
That's the nerdiest answer I've ever heard.
I had the TI-83 plus.
Oh, snap.
But yeah, that wasn't.
I feel like it'd be someone being like, I just really love that Pac-Man kill screen. I was the only one who could make it there. I
wanted to like do like choose your own adventure games. Like you could do them like TI like 85s or 83s, and like I don't know, and I'd like put them on friends. Like I just could have done better in calculus class probably if I wasn't spending most of my class creating that. But
how much calculus are you using today? Exactly. And how much programming knowledge are you using today?
Exactly. So it worked out great.
There's two things during my like upbringing that made me go, this is what I want to do. And the first one is really lame. When I was a really little kid, I was at a doctor office or something similar with my mom, and I could barely see over the counter, but there was this lady just like ticking on the keyboard. And I was thinking, that's so cool. She's doing things with computers. And that made me just like computers. And then when I got older, I'd watch Star Wars and things like that. And I thought R2-D2 was the coolest thing. And I was like, I want this to exist, but I also don't want to just trust that someone else in the world is going to do it. You know what? I'm going to learn and I'm going to do it.
That's amazing.
I still haven't made R2-D2.
Dude,
but by God, I'm closer than I was.
We need to pivot. We need to pivot. Let's go make R2-D2 happen.
Yeah. I feel like that is a lifelong journey to build an R2-D2. So you're on the right path.
Yeah, I've learned. I tried learning, Raspberry Pi and some natural language processing and things like that to get some background, and it's monumental. So it hasn't gone anywhere yet.
If you ever talk to Ed, I bet you guys can knock that out.
But Ed's working on R2-D2 in his garage. I know it.
Yeah, Amazon Amazon has a service for that.
They kind of do, actually.
Yeah.
At least part of it.
What about you? What was your slippery slope?
I mean, mine's pretty lame. I was going to school for cybersecurity, and as an extra class, I had to take just a basic web design class, and I thought I was going to hate it. I really was not looking forward to it, and once I dove into it, I was like, "This is amazing," and it's
Because I
pretty much decided that's what I wanted to do after that.
Yeah, because DevSec is cool, right? If from that's like superpower. Yeah, knowing all that stuff.
Kind of.
Okay.
Kind of. I mean, on the outside, I see the appeal, but I mean, at least in my experience, every person that's been really into it that I know is not really cool.
Oh yeah, no, they're all dicks. You ever seen those people? Was it Black Hat? No, it's not. It's the Black Hat conference where don't bring your phone into that.
The one.
I feel like you guys are creating enemies for us right now. I don't know if this is a good idea.
Yeah, you're probably right. Well, no, but I was sort of using this as a segue to say we've been talking this whole time about you want to learn how to code, but we're thinking about that as building websites and stuff. Yeah. But that's not necessarily what coding is for everybody. There's a whole Devops sysadmin layer. There's an IT layer. There's there's a lot there that's not. I mean, think about big data and analytics and stuff like that. Maybe people who are I love crunching numbers and I'm really good at Excel, and it's let me turn you on to Omniture or whatever they call it now, Adobe Catalyst or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's true. Just using R to start administrative analysis. That's very true. I mean, especially AWS these days. That's still relatively new. We're 13 years into really using AWS, but that's kind of relatively new when you think about it. And all the services coming online, getting a certification there. And there's a lot of job opportunities there.
That's true. And that's through, what was it? Is that Cloud Academy actually? Or you can get your AWS Cloud Practitioner certification through there. It's all free.
Yes, it's not free.
It's not free. That's why you have that look on your face.
We're also getting the name of it wrong. It's going to drive me nuts now. But yeah. No, you can get all the certifications. You can get all those different AWS certifications. They walk you through it. And it's it's a specialized thing that's in a huge demand for folks.
Yeah, that might be an interesting way to get into that world, just to see, because if you're I know how to kind of set up some of these systems from a high level, or I can at least consult about it, then you can maybe work your way down.
Yeah, they have their own ecosystems too. I mean, there's so much demand for that kind of stuff right now. I mean, I feel like you'll work for a company that is pretty big, 30, 40, 50 engineers, and there's one DevOps person.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder about the security of all this.
Huge demand.
That's, how many S3 buckets have just been open?
What are you talking about? For that demo?
Yeah, I've spent a fair amount of hours in AWS in the last few months, and still things will come up where I'll be asked to do something in AWS, and it takes a fair amount of time to figure it out. And I envy those folks that are truly AWS fluent.
Like gurus, yeah. I'm a step behind that even, where it's I'll log into AWS and just one day I'll kind of cruise through all the services. I'm what the hell is this thing? And I click it. I'm that's awesome. How long has this existed?
I will probably never stop finding new things in AWS or getting stuck.
At least they're starting to bucket them by what they do, which is nice, because it used to just be a big long list.
Yeah, though there's a ton. There's a ton in there. That's a good point. I think about.
Well, what about even doing something like Wix or Squarespace and just customizing something like that? Learn some CSS.
Yeah, I think there's two different camps, and that's fair. It's two different camps you can go down. And I kind of remember friends in high school the same way. There was people that were early days pirating music, right? And those are the people that. Can I say that? I can say that. Yeah. They look at me. I'm
the music industry is
sorry, God.
Just don't say their names.
But those people, they a lot of times folks that like to do more hardware based stuff, doing more DevOps and AWS stuff is a natural progression. Where I think more on the artistic side of stuff, you can do things either design or straddling between design and web to front end is real. That's been, and you've seen that change, I think, in the last 2 decades, where front end initially wasn't really considered real development. But this day and age, I would argue that the more complex stuff is actually happening on the front end than the back end. Which is why I went from the front end to the back end. I made the.
You go the other way.
Yeah, I went the other way. I'm get out of here.
You're doing the reverse.
Yeah, exactly. Get out of this thing.
Yeah, well, you decided you wanted to get. So Ryan, you decided to get in the front end after part of the boot camp. Part of that was the front end interest. Why front end? Especially coming from the world where you'd probably be more in the back end doing
absolutely. I just found it very gratifying that you could, at the end of the day, see all the things that you have done, as opposed to reading some console log outputs from the server and seeing, okay, I got the data, and it was just really cool to be able to.
It's like playing
build
offense on a team.
To build. Yeah, that's
They're the ones
that's a
scoring
very
the
good way to
goals.
put
They're
it.
like,
Yeah,
look at
yeah.
this is awesome. I don't know why they don't have the API ready, but they'll get it someday.
Yeah, that's it. We got knocked it. I'm done.
But
But actually, I think I've gone the other way too, where I used to like the front end for that. Like I called it the lead guitar of the engineering world, where it's like people recognize it, they're interfacing with that directly. That's the thing that they hear and they sound. And so for me, though, it's like now that I've gotten further in life, it's more like I'd like to have backend code that no one ever talks about. It's quiet. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't complain. No, it never goes down. It's just like, but I don't ever want to get paged in the middle of the night. So that's why front end dev is real nice, because it's like no one gets paged for front end stuff.
Yeah, but on front end, you actually have UX people who will be looking over it, and so you'll just get random, tickets for, hey, we like this thing that we asked for a week ago, but now we want it this way instead. Whereas with API, you build something, it works. That's pretty much the end of it, until some point where they decide to re-architect.
But I have been on things where I've replaced like the home screen 6 times in like 2 months. So that's very true.
Absolutely, I've been there. My old company had a client where they did that. They'd send us their own mocks, this huge mock, huge rework, and less than a month later, we'd get another entire rework mock. Say, we like it this way.
That's crazy. Yeah, really?
Absolutely.
We see. I think that's happened with us.
Sorry, I don't feel like that degree.
Well, we built that sales app for that company that will remain unnamed, and that design changed several times. A big part of it was because it was like they had never figured out, like, oh yeah, you got to scroll on an iPad. We should probably handle that.
The afterthoughts are killers sometimes.
So like the designs change a lot, and then you're like, well, I built this whole
Just
thing.
poor user testing.
Yeah.
It's a solvable problem.
Well, that's true. Actually, we do design sprints to kind of solve this.
Yeah,
stuff.
like you should. I mean, right? You should be doing all that like in Envision or something like that,
Yeah.
and then user testing.
Yeah, it's harder when you're first starting out too. If you already have a product and you can like do some A/B testing, or you can just release that new feature. Well,
You mean a feature flag?
feature flags. Yes,
That's the whole thing. Yeah.
He's very excited
But
about
yeah.
feature flags this week.
you can use a feature flag to only show that to a certain subset of customers and collect some feedback.
Yeah.
It's hard when you just like
But like if you're starting from scratch still, you should be you should be doing it in design and then user testing. Like if you have to change your homepage 6 times in 2 months, there's a problem with
That
your
got designed
process.
in a vacuum.
Like you need to step back and figure out what happened that made that happen, because you spent a lot of money developing 6 different homepages you didn't use.
Yeah. I think people tend to overlook how
Yes.
much money gets spent on rework.
Something broke somewhere.
Yeah, your process is not working well. Well, let's. We got any last thoughts on this before we move into the picks stage of things?
What do you think? I know we touched on this in the beginning, but actually I'm like super curious about this because you guys are close to the accelerator programs and everything else. Like thematically, like what are the signs that you see in people going to those other than drive that like deem success? Is there a common theme that deem success, or is it just drive is that theme?
Or having something that they want to build, maybe?
I'm going to stick to, that's a really good one. Having something that you want to build, having problems in your own life that the code that you're learning about can help you solve is a massive, massive motivator for people. That's effectively what worked for me. I learned a language, and then I went, how can this solve a problem I have? And a problem that I had was, poor money management, like a lot of people. And I didn't like the existing things, mint.com and such. And so I went, you know what? It's a good exercise. I'll build my own. And I was into it. I was super into it, super excited. And I still use it to this day. I've been using it for about 3 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm just
Is it
doing
just for
a
you?
rewrite. Yeah, I haven't. I've had people ask me for access to it, and so I have a couple people who I don't know if they're still using it, but created accounts and started to use it. But I'm doing a rewrite right now for a site that's going to replace it.
What was your first pet project?
pet project.
Yeah. I would consider would you consider that a pet project, Richard?
Yeah,
It's nothing legal. It's nothing.
So why does that not surprise me? Okay, Brandon, what was your first pet project?
I'm trying to think of something that was like what I really cared about on the side. It's different for me. I was very much like as soon as I had enough under my belt to lie about what I knew, I was just out there selling myself. Like I was basically
that's one of the industry tricks.
yeah.
Right?
I was like, I remember walking in and being like, "Do you know MySQL?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I do." And I was like, "I gotta go buy a book after that meeting." But I tried to get every internship. Craigslist job. I didn't care if it paid $200 and it took me 6 weeks. I'm like, whatever. I need experience. I don't care. I need money and experience. So I just did everything.
That's really similar to my first one. I went into the interview. They said, "Okay, we're using JavaScript and all this. Do you know that?" Yeah, sure. And then I spent about a week doing nothing but reading eloquent JavaScript and building stuff.
Wait,
like
that's
every
what
day.
you told me. It's interesting that book thing's actually a really interesting point because that's what I used to have to do.
Same.
It's
Absolutely.
so different now.
weird.
I was doing like object-oriented PHP.
Yeah,
it
me
was
too.
brand new at the time, and there was like 3 books that had like 3 paragraphs each.
Yeah.
So I had to buy all these books,
That
and it's like
black and
$100.
Whoever
Whatever.
puts out those black and yellow books put out a PHP. I think it's A-Press.
For dummies.
Oh,
I was going to say, the
yeah,
black and
yeah.
yellows are dummies.
By the way,
Right?
more black.
I think you're right.
yellow,
I think it's A-Press.
A-Press. Yeah, they put out a PHP 5 book, and because there was like a 2-chapter block on classes in OOP design and PHP, I'm like, finally. Yeah. But that was how. But now it's like, oh, there's a new React hooks came out. I'm like, I'm just gonna log into Egghead, just watch that 5-minute clip and
Right? Like,
got
isn't
it.
that crazy how much that? I remember reading the same thing, like reading a bunch of books for everything I wanted to learn. It was terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
My,
Terrible.
my like go-to book was the Peach Pit Quick Start Guide for PHP and MySQL, and I had
Pit?
Yeah, I remember. I think it was Peach Pit Press. Anyway, I had a bunch of like tons of post-its in that book. And like, here's the page to do this. Here's how I connect. Here's how I do this. Like, yeah.
Do you think they're not valuable anymore?
Books?
I'm not in general. I mean, like in development.
What is this? Fahrenheit 451. Like,
Like when I want to learn something new, I just go figure out a product that I want to build, and then I just stumble my way through it until I figure out the best practices. Like that's just the way.
Yeah, we actually have a Rocket blog. We called it Middle Out Learning. And it's that concept, you may want to start with like a tutorial or something to get the basics down. So if you're coming in with no coding knowledge, go learn, a little bit more formally. Yeah, exactly. Learn the structures that are common across all the languages. But then once you're at the point where you feel like, okay, I've built a couple things through the course of this learning, I feel like I could actually build something now. Just do it. You're going to hit roadblocks, a ton of roadblocks, but quite frankly, those roadblocks are where
that's what
stuff's
learning
gonna
happens.
stick.
I totally agree.
We all-
So
we
you understand how
have-
everything works end to end. Like I think it's so valuable.
I mean, that's
Picklefriend.com.
Was it?
Remember picklefriend.com? That was my first project. Do you not know what that is? It's my company I made in college. You could send a pickle to anyone in the continental U.S. for $5.
So it's the old
Picklefriend.com.
glitter. It's the original version of the glitter bomb thing.
Well, no, it's
I don't
more
think glitter bomb is.
They have a potato.
I sent an actual
now.
pickle.
It's on Shark Tank where it's like you can just send a potato.
There's
to
the
anyone you
potato,
want.
which made a lot more sense. I had a lot of shipping problems. Like I had gallons of
Because they leak.
There's poop ones too. You can send people poop.
Yeah, that's right. But you can do like, I want to send you wolf poop, or I want to send you elephant poop. Like, yeah, I forgot about that. So you're ahead of your time.
I had a lot of animated GIFs of a pickle dancing, a lot of primary colors on my website, and it's really bad.
Marquise.
No, but I do like. I always try to use the marquee tag. Actually,
heard you like
Yeah, I
marquees.
do like the marquee tag.
Actually, we
Marquees
did-
and flashing backgrounds.
Was it at one of our projects? We created a React marquee tag.
That didn't work at all. I thought it was a good idea. I thought it was a really good idea.
Turns out that the real problem with the marquee tag was that it existed at all because it's not a very good user experience.
We tried using it for. I thought it was a great idea. It was for the ellipsis, like when you cut off text, but if you moused over it, it would
was
turn into a
marquee.
marquee tag.
Oh, that's
It actually it sounded really good.
Cool. I like
It
that.
didn't
Doesn't-
work at
not
all.
great
It was
on
terrible.
execution.
It was a terrible user experience in the end.
Especially when those names are like.
We had to back that guy out real fast. Like,
Any last thoughts?
oh, picks. We got to do
Picks.
picks
Let's
now.
roll into picks. Do you want to go first, Dave?
No.
I can go first, I guess. So, I typically just think of these as like we're starting this, but I've been doing a bunch of cooking at home over the past like year, and I realized how much I rely on America's Test Kitchen when I open up Google Chrome and I tap on my phone and I tap the address bar, and the very first thing is like americastestkitchen.com/favorites, and everything that they put out is really helps me like understand how and why it works the way it does. But the recipes are like, if you just follow that thing to the letter, you're going to have really delicious food. And there's nothing more defeating than when you're like trying to learn how to cook and it just keeps you just keep fucking up and like it keeps coming out bad and you keep throwing it away and ordering pizza and you're like, why am I spending all this money to get this wrong? And then you do an America's Test Kitchen recipe and you're like, oh, I actually can cook. All right. So yeah, if you're like trying to get into cooking, I feel like that's a great place to start. They also have an online cooking school, which is onlinecookingschool.com, which is a very like, okay, I want to like learn knife skills and I want to learn how to do like a bechamel and I want to like you.
It's like being like a chef.
Yeah, it's closer to like doing like going to the culinary arts school kind of thing, but yeah, online.
Go big or go home.
So that's my pick, americastestkitchen.com. They're based out of Boston too.
I like that.
I don't know if I have one.
You're just gonna skip entirely? How about a video game? How about Apex Legends? Do you like Apex Legends?
I haven't got into it.
So you're just okay, you got nothing? How about a sub? How about someone on Twitch we should sub to?
Sub to?
Yeah.
Me.
Richard.
You're gonna pick Richard for? All right.
No, I don't currently stream anymore, but if I could take the opportunity to plug, I would have. So mine, I'll do. So this is a great podcast, I think, for anybody. It's called Syntax. And it's just a couple of guys that are primarily React devs, and they talk about a lot of React, but also a lot of things that are kind of language and technology agnostic within the development world, particularly web. So I think it's a great thing kind of to fit the theme of our podcast here, that folks that are new can listen to as part of their journey. They have some episodes early on that are specifically, hey, what are some great ways to start from the ground up?
Yeah, they run.
I think that's really
great podcast.
Yeah, so it's syntax.fm is the website. They are on the Apple what do they call it? Just podcast store. Yeah. I'm not.
Find it on your
I'm
podcast of choice.
Yeah, I don't have an iPhone anymore. But yeah, it's syntax.fm. Check it out.
And they also do this picks thing on their show. So
And
if you want to find more of these kind
Sick
of great
picks.
Yeah, sick picks. That's right. Yeah, that's I love that podcast. It's great. It's true. I started off with like a couple other ones that were like CSS-ish shop talk show, and it's it's a little more low level. It's sort of I'm building like your 5 pagers, home, about us, and that kind of thing. But I like Syntax because you can tell that they live in like the front end dev world, and so they talk about more of that stuff that we do daily, which I like.
So I get asked a lot, like we have very little overhead here at Rocket, like compared to most agencies. Like we permit, like, God bless Dorothy, she does an insane amount. But people would wonder like how to get by with just really like a single person as overhead. And so I'm going to call out Harvest, which we use for basically all of our invoicing and time tracking and expense tracking. And it also has an open API, so we can build tools on top of it, which we've been able to do. And so I think with the conjunction of that, like, and actually be disciplined about it, like, it's been amazing what I think that's leveraged us to do. So my pick is going to be Harvest.
It's funny you picked that because I feel like recently we were talking about someone else wanting to drop Harvest, and you're like, no way,
No
never
way.
happened.
They would kill us. Exactly. Yeah.
Knowing that they have an open API, I'm just going to write a script that automatically enters my hours every week.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
I get to like Tuesday and I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for Dorothy. I'm
Why do we
slacking.
get a Noxus skill for that? That's actually a really
That's
good.
funny. I was just saying the same thing in my head. I'm like, why don't I just have a license?
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
8 hours.
Log 8 hours today.
Yeah, we did a similar thing for a company called where you're like log your steps, log your things. So it's like for us, why not log our hours and Harvest? Makes
Yeah,
more sense.
absolutely.
Yeah, interesting.
All right, well, so mine's going to be something I learned about 10 minutes before the podcast. So we got a guy in the office who does a lot of card tricks all the time. And he was showing me a couple things. And online, there's this YouTube channel called Orbit Brown. And I watched a few minutes of the tricks these guys do, and it's just mind-boggling.
Is it like sleight of hand, like I'm going to a magic show, or is it more like I'm going to fling a card and stick it in the wall?
It's actually kind of a mix of both.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
And it's just, you watch the channel and I have no idea how
Dude,
they would
this is
even
sweet.
conceive how to come up with these tricks.
It's happening in real time.
I play with cards too, in the sense that I like to do magic tricks and some of this cardistry stuff, but I haven't found a resource that I really liked. And I think this looks
There you
pretty
go.
good.
Check it out.
I dig it.
Those guys are insane.
And if you're thinking about, man, these Rocket Insights people sound cool, and I like magic, we also have a corporate membership to the Magic Castle in LA, which I believe is rare.
We should be plugging Evan Northup, too. The magician that comes to all of our holiday parties.
Dude, that guy's awesome.
That dude's amazing.
The problem with that, though, is that when I show up to those parties, I don't leave his table. I don't interact with
follow
people.
around all day.
I'm like, show me another one. Show me another one. Like, yeah, I get way too into that. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Hey, look at that. About 35 minutes.
Excellent.
So that's the end of this one. I hope you took something away from it. I think the basic takeaway that I'm hearing, like as a theme, is if you're thinking about getting into it, just try. Like if you find that it's fun as you like plow past those barriers, it's probably for you. And if you're like, man, I want to gouge my eyes out, it's probably not for you. So there's a lot of different angles you can get into this world. So yeah, just try it. Good luck.